Welcome to Prison Wife Radio, where we play all the hits while we all wait in our car for the prison to open its gates, which is actually just really a door, and to welcome us in with open carry arms as they try to decipher which one of us is bringing in the drugs. Spoiler alert, it's the COs. I'm your host, Myra, and if you're out there listening, show some love.
There are more than 2 million individuals incarcerated in the U.S. legal punishment system.
Prison wives are a lot like military wives, without all the thank yous.
I mean, they won't show, right? So we have to tell.
The system is most definitely the villain.
Your loved one shows up to medical unconscious? They ain't telling
He's been
you
down
shit.
for 20 years. Yesterday he told me that his sentence had to be recalculated. Their mistake added 2 years.
There are more than 2 million individuals incarcerated in the U.S. legal punishment system. This is the story of the people who love them, involved.
75 days until my husband comes home. Hello, listeners, and today when I say listeners, I don't just mean all you good faith folks tuning in to learn more about what prison is actually like. No, today when I say listeners, I'm also talking to you. Who? Well, I spy with my little eye and eye a cop or two, or 3, or 4 amongst us. Word off the streets is the cops have found out about the radio dispatches and are listening. But how do I know this? Well, of course, I took my husband in for questioning. What is she up to? Why is she disparaging us? Why doesn't she like us? So, now that they know, that I know, that they know I'm out here talking, I thought we'd do a special episode devoted to them, with a special intro for our new cop buddies tuning in. Take it away, Myra. This one's dedicated to the ones we loathe. This episode is all about Copaganda. And I know you're thinking, what in the fuck is Copaganda? And you're in luck because I'm about to help you Understanda. That joke won't make sense until much later. What you need to know first is Copaganda is propaganda meant to paint law enforcement in a good light. It shows up in lots of different ways in media, entertainment, and just in everyday society. It's everywhere. Copaganda exists to indoctrinate you into a belief that cops are good. Cops are always telling the truth. Cops solve crime, but also prevent it. Which is just bullshit because cops literally have nothing to do with preventing crime. We know this, and yet budgets soar. Even if you gave the cops everything they wanted, which in their world would be 1 cop assigned to every person, there would still be crime because 1, cops commit crimes, and 2, cops don't prevent crime. A common scene I see play out with friends goes like this. I say, he was taken to the hole. They say, what did he do? The burden is placed on my husband to defend himself immediately. It's a simple question, and it's asked by my friends in an honest way, trying to obtain information. But what it reveals is that there is a default judgment. If my husband has an interaction with cops, it's assumed he did something. What other reason would they have to bother him, right? That's the result of Copaganda. Centuries of journalists acting as stenographers for cops, television shows portraying cops as handsome, good-hearted, well-meaning folks with a want of justice. Okay, but Myra, you might be asking, how would I ask that question without a judgment? You would ask me what happened. Then I can tell you what happened. And usually after I tell my friends what happened, they say, that's fucked up. And I agree. But they love my husband, and they give him or me a chance to explain. It's why I'm taking the time to explain what life is like for those of us involved with incarcerated loved ones. We see it every day, but we are up against media and entertainment. But these kinds of interactions happen over and over every day without consideration that we may be on the receiving end of Copaganda, which makes us default to a way of thinking that paints every interaction a person has with law enforcement as their own fault, as a what did they do, Without understanding how much fuckery is behind law enforcement and how much the system and institutions rely on interactions with law enforcement and the public's belief that they are not the fault of law enforcement to keep this system going. Copaganda is how from a very young age we are mingling with cops in so many different ways that are designed to make you feel like cops are good people and that policing is an inherently good profession, a good institution. And this makes it difficult to educate about policing in prisons. It has a similar structure to religion. If you are introduced at a young age before you develop critical thinking skills, you are very susceptible to believe anything your pastor/preacher, etc. tells you or asks of you. And that unquestioning faith leads to some very harmful places, as we've seen most recently with the Catholic Church. Are there good people who become cops? Sure. I mean, being a cop for many people is a great job. Lots of benefits, great pay, retirement, lots of vacay. And when you really need to game the system, overtime pay and lucrative contracting work. It's not even in the top 10 most dangerous jobs, but of all the quote-unquote dangerous jobs out there, it is by far the most well-represented by a union and enjoys the best benefits. Little side ramble here to stave off the gotcha folks. People criticize abolitionists when we point out policing and prisons are upholding white supremacy. They think it's a gotcha to point out that there are any number of percentage of non-white people employed as cops and correction workers. Fair. But a good paying job is a good paying job, even if it goes against your own interests. If non-cop jobs paid the same as other jobs with pension, retirement, school reimbursement, etc., and those jobs weren't in the private sector where racist hiring practices are harder to fight against, you would see less non-white people holding these jobs. And again, as we always say, white supremacy is a system and an institution. Rotten orchards and toxic soil. Non-white people survive in the systems and institutions white supremacy has constructed in its image. That's not a gotcha. That's just life. Back to Copaganda. So I am but a person of average knowledge who doesn't have the academic prowess. I mean, I'm not even sure what prowess means, but I've heard it used in this context before, so I'm going to use it. I don't have the academic prowess to instruct on Copaganda, and there are far better resources that I will include at the end of the episode, and I hope you read them. But here are my own examples of how Copaganda gets into the American psyche, the way microplastics get into our bloodstream, right in front of us, hidden in clear sight. Copaganda in schools. One of my earliest memories of cops being presented as our friend goes back to the 80s. We were all fingerprinted at school by our local police. Some local cops would come in and fingerprint us for our own safety because it was the 80s and stranger danger was all the rage. Think of the kidnapped child by some rando in a white van as the school shootings of today. But unlike school shootings, these rando kidnappings weren't really happening all that often. Media just made you feel like they were. Nevertheless, from a business perspective, it was useful because a whole market of things sprung up around the fear of child abductions. Side note, if you truly want a deep dive on how useless cops are when an actual child goes missing, please do yourself and your Copagandist tendencies a favor and check out the podcast In the Dark, Season 1. Never mind the overwhelming majority of child kidnappings are family or marital disputes. But we don't do a bunch of family therapy or offer help to families struggling with the pressures of raising children and paying bills. No, instead we gave that funding to cops so they can come to the school and terrorize children by fingerprinting them. Win-win, because they get to act like they're just your friendly, golly gee whiz officer with the kids, and at the same time putting them into the system so that later on they can be arrested. Copaganda. Sleight of hand. Again, a joke that will make sense later. Copaganda in Hollywood. Let's start with the most basic way that Copaganda works in entertainment. Cops and military are generally portrayed as the good guys, the smart guys, the guys with integrity. They give them the slick weapons, and damn if they don't know how to use them precisely. In reality, cops and military personnel are just fucking around through their jobs like the rest of us. It's a bunch of dudes who want to play Call of Duty on and off duty, who are told they're right, no questions asked.
Mission completed. Good work.
Policing locally and internationally, our military, is the biggest work program the U.S. offers, and it makes sure all of its failures are hidden. losing every single conflict it gets embroiled in, training thousands of mostly men to become so violent and aggressive without consequence that domestic violence rates soar, substance use disorders soar, rates of death by suicide soar. They sell it to you in a sweet little Copaganda package that looks like jet flyovers at football games, coffee with cop programs, and cops on TV making the tough calls. Book 'em. If you've seen Law & Order, you've seen Copaganda. Every episode of Law & Order goes like this. Crime happens because you notice no cop stops it, so they have to investigate. Detectives come in, they find clues, they go to trial. The truth's in the episode, crime happens and cops don't prevent it or stop it. The lies in the episode, detectives are smart and solve puzzles. In reality, crime either doesn't get solved, 40% of murders are not cleared, or not investigated. Property crime, we don't have the time. Or somebody tells, and many times the people who tell are other people in trouble with the law who get some kind of deal for telling. Jail informant. This is how almost all of it goes down. Then there's a plea deal. Almost none of it goes to trial. Law & Order makes cops and lawyers and all of it seem like really well-intentioned people with a lot of smarts. Think about it. Who gets to go to law school in general? Rich kids. Who becomes prosecutors? Rich dicks. Who become cops? The poor bullies and people who want the benefits. So we've got Reno 911 or Rambos running the police departments. Side note, Reno 911 is by far the most accurate depiction of cops on TV. Copaganda is also the language. When an officer is accused of shooting somebody, the papers will refer to them as peace officers. When they're put in schools, school resource officer. It's a cop. A cop is a cop. When they want more money from city budgets, they'll create programs called community policing. They show up at parades, at sports matches. They'll show up to a fucking bike giveaway only to take that same bike to a poor neighborhood and use it as a bait bike to arrest some kid who takes it. It's disgusting. Copaganda is the way you're expected to say thank you for your service to law enforcement, but not to teachers, librarians, healthcare professionals, community orgs filling in all the gaps created by the cities who rob social services to pay law enforcement for work that is never really helping anybody. Let's walk through a crime. Say somebody robs somebody. By the time the police are called, generally speaking, it's over. If the person has sought help, it's from the people around them. Police show up, and depending on how melanated your skin is, they treat you with contempt all the way down to just, we can't really do anything, ma'am, we'll file the report. Paperwork, which is basically a huge part of this super dangerous job. And then nothing changes. Because crime isn't about good and evil on a large scale or the way rich people do crime. It's power and greed. And we call that white collar and nobody really ever goes to jail because the legal system doesn't want to fuck up the lives of the affluent. But if you aren't rich, and especially if you aren't white, crime is born out of deprivation of resources. And so you steal, you assault somebody, etc. Does this cause harm? Yes. Did Flint officials know the water was toxic? Yes. Did they go to jail? No. Does the person who steals something because they don't have it go to jail? Yes. I digressed on my digression. Basically, Copaganda is all the myths and narratives created around policing to make you believe the only thing standing between your safety and a potential crime is a cop. When in reality, the things keeping you safe are your neighbors and community members getting needs met. Healthcare, housing, education, food, financing. When humans get these basic needs met, societies function well. But law enforcement and military suck all those resources so they can engage in the biggest game of Call of Duty, LARPing all around the country, all around the world, and losing every game. Because violence begets violence. And in our community, pain inflicts pain. If you understood how little the police have to do with your actual safety, you would stop allowing them to take all the money out of your budgets. And remember, kids, what do we say about policing? Not just bad apples, rotten orchards, and toxic soil.
Let's wrap by sharing a song one of the family members uses to teach her students at her charter school. I know. I roll my eyes at charter school too, but they pay her a lot of money and she gets to teach about abolition because all of the rich white people who send their kids there don't really believe it will actually happen. And it makes them feel edgy to say their kids know people who have loved ones who are incarcerated. Without further ado, here's the song Sophie wrote, I sung badly, and Malia taught to her class during her abolition curriculum this year. It's a catchy little bop called Copaganda. Malia, we thank you for your service. Okay, everyone, it's time to cop a plan to dismantle Copaganda.
Got a cop a plan to platform Copaganda. Got a cop a plan to resist the Copaganda. Gotta take a stand to dismantle Copaganda. Got a cop a plan to platform Copaganda. First part of a plan to platform Copaganda. We gotta understand what is Copaganda. Boys on the street talking to a cop. They ask him, what did you see? And they have a little chat. The reporter prints it in the newspaper as fact. Reporter prints it in the newspaper as fact. It's cops on TV, written in a way to make them look so brave, when in reality they have super high DD rates. Written in a way to make them look so smart, when in reality crimes are solved because an informant tells, a crime partner tells, somebody tells, or in roughly half the cases they aren't solved at all. They don't get solved at all. They aren't solved at all. They don't get solved at all. Got a plan to platform Copaganda. Got a cop a plan to resist the Copaganda. Gotta take a stand to dismantle Copaganda. Got a cop a plan to platform Copaganda. Next part of our plan to dismantle Copaganda. Gotta understand the aim of Copaganda. Gotta understand the aim of Copaganda. They run playgrounds, cars, and rules to pay for police. You say thank you for your service while you're getting fleas. They take all of the money out of community spaces. Say it's for public safety. They're playing right in your faces. Say it's unsafe. Everybody's a threat. While your family can't make rent, sinking further in debt. Further in debt. Got a cop a plan to platform Copaganda. Got a cop a plan to resist the Copaganda. Gotta take a stand to dismantle Copaganda. Got a cop a plan to platform Copaganda. It's part of a plan to defeat the Copaganda. We gotta share this mantra to counter Copaganda. See it in the news or cop dog cartoons. You gotta ask yourself, what is it trying to do? It's trying to hide this basic truth. We trade community spaces for more cops. We trade libraries for cop shops. We trade pools and playgrounds for guns and live rounds. Trading housing, healthcare, food, wages, and education. Also, cops can have pensions and go on lame vacations. Got a cop a plan to platform Copaganda. Got a cop a plan to resist the Copaganda. Gotta take a stand to dismantle Copaganda. Got a cop a plan to platform Copaganda. Housing, healthcare, food, wages, and education. Also, cops can have pensions and go on lame vacations. Trading housing, healthcare, food, wages, and education. Also, cops can have pensions and go on lame vacations. Taking our lives so cops can thrive. They take our lives, the cops survive. They're taking our lives. Yeah, I don't know if she's going to be teaching there next year. Anyways, that's it for today's show. Join us next week when we talk some more about well-intentioned do-gooders coming into the prison with a savior complex and absolutely fucking things up for our loved ones. You're welcome, and I've been great.